Yes, yes, yes. Oh, you know what that sound means? Time for In the Paddock F1, Greeny and the Cheese. We have made the 880-mile trek from Bahrain across the desert, past the sandworms, to the banks of the Red Sea. That's right, we are in Jeddah for the 5th time. Already, how about that, Michael? 5th time already. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Jeddah is the 2nd largest city in Saudi Arabia, the gateway to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. You got the fountain, the aquarium, the shopping, all kinds of good stuff. But this ain't no travel show. This is an F1 show, and we're racing the Jeddah Corniche Street Circuit. 3.84 miles, 27 corners, 3 DRS zones. Oh, it's a fast through that concrete, baby. You give it the full beans for 75% of your lap. And we got a little excitement there at the beginning of those Arabian nights as Max and Oscar battled to the turn 1. Max made the pass off track, got a 5-second penalty for that little show there as Oscar then takes the lead. And Oscar says, oh yes, please, the spice is nice. As Oscar takes his 3rd win of the season. Max takes 2nd. Leclerc takes Ferrari's 1st podium to round it out on this double holiday. Happy Easter and happy Cannabis Day. Yes, we are caffeinated and you know that we are medicated. Greeny, good day, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. As we in the Paddock F1, Greeny and the Cheese. Little audio issue there. Thanks for joining us. Of course, we're getting some new YouTube stuff coming out this week. Thanks for everyone joining us there. Of course, in the Paddock F1 podcast on YouTube, in the Paddock USA at gmail.com. You can email us there. We have some exciting new stuff coming up very soon. Potentially some 2025 raffle trivia, some good interactive stuff, and maybe some giveaways coming your way. So we will see how that goes. But thanks for joining us. Oscar Piastri, once again, as we talked about last week, he's definitely the favorite now for the 2025 season. Lando Norris, I don't know what happened, man. He needed a win in the worst way and couldn't even get a podium. Ferrari gets their 1st podium of the season. And right off the bat, Oscar Piastri, right in front of Max Verstappen, like you said, gets that 5-second penalty. Obviously, a 2.8-second difference at the end of the race between Oscar and Max. So obviously, that 5-second penalty is a major difference. Who knows what different strategy, obviously, if it wasn't for the 5-second penalty. So I'm not saying Oscar would have definitely not won, but pretty good shot of Max winning if he did not have that early violation. But he was not confident. So if you heard any of the even post-practice, but even post-quali, as Max takes pole, and the first pole sitter of the year to not win a race, how about them apples, in 2025, and the first time since, I believe, 2021, the first season we raced in Saudi Arabia, that we had someone other than a Red Bull winning here. So interesting weekend. If you missed passing in Japan, you had plenty of that today. You have a kerfuffle right off the bat. You got right off the bat, that collision takes out Yuki and takes out Pierre Gasly, who both made Q3, so good for them until, lap 1. And the safety car, that changed some strategy as well. Ended up being a one-stop race, and that's pretty much sums up the day. The entire race happened pretty much in lap 1, and after that safety car, we pretty much saw a consistent race throughout. What happened here? And was this a less exciting race than it could have been?
If Red Bull tells Max to give the spot back before the penalty, Max could have, as you were saying, could have possibly won the race. There was definitely more at the end. With Leclerc holding on for Ferrari's first podium. Leclerc was flying there for a while. I mean, a lot of guys, him and Lando were both flying at the end on different strategies, of course. With Lando starting on the hard tires since he started 10th. But if Red Bull doesn't just be so hard-nosed as they tend to be on the pit wall, let's give that spot back, they possibly win this race. Especially with, Oscar's first stop there was slow.
Mm-hmm.
I think a second slower than the Red Bull, so... And there's a couple things there, and he only finished, 2 seconds behind, so... Could have definitely been a completely different race if Red Bull just decided to, give the spot back and fight from there. Because, he did have the pace. But
2.8 seconds to be exact.
Oscar is the number one driver at McLaren right now. Let's be dead honest.
And we talked about that last week, and we even started talking about that last season, that Oscar Piastri might be the number one. And after this weekend, now, listen, if this was a 52-lap race as opposed to a 50-lap race, there's a decent chance Lando Norris could have been on that podium. He was definitely catching up towards the end there to Charles, but good thing, like I said earlier, for Ferrari for coming in third and finally making podium. Ferrari has never finished below top 8 here at Saudi Arabia, and that continued today with both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc finishing in the top 8. So, yeah, what a difference, man, because nobody was picking Oscar Piastri to win in 2025. Not many people. People were, as far as the Constructors' Championship. But you would tell. I don't know if I would have believed you if you told me that Oscar Piastri was going to win 3 of the first 5 races this season.
Yeah.
Going into the season with Lewis Hamilton's situation and Ferrari, with Max Verstappen just being there.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been really tough for me to believe that Oscar Piastri would have won 3 of the first 5 races. But here we are. McLaren out to a tremendous lead in the Constructors. Oscar Piastri now with a 10-point lead over Lando Norris. Max Verstappen only 2 points behind Lando Norris for second. So we really have a battle. We have 12 points separate first to third. And you look a little further down there. Kimi Antonelli so far ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship 5 races in. So very interesting beginning to the season, especially on the top end. And again, congratulations to Oscar Piastri, the first Australian since 2010. His manager, Mark Webber, I believe 2010 or 2011, he was the last Australian to lead at any point the Drivers' Championship. So congratulations to him. So close last week. Lando pulling it out and getting those extra points towards the end there last week. But this week, he does it. And the Thunder from down under, doing it and doing it right. Final thoughts before we get into the nitty-gritty of the rest of the race as far as our top story is concerned. Cheers.
Max is just also that damn good. I mean, that car's kind of duff. And he just does there's things with it that legendary drivers do. It just makes the car better than it actually is. You just have to take that in.
Yeah, only 2 points behind Lando Norris. Only 2 points behind Lando at 5 races in. And that's incredible.
Yeah.
All right, so that, of course, brings us to maybe my least favorite, maybe my most favorite part of the week. Depends on the week. It is Quizmaster's Cockpit. Round 5 of Quizmaster's Cockpit. I am 9 for 12 with 1 title, 1 big win this year, 3 losses. So I'm 1-3 overall, but 9-12 as far as the questions are concerned. For those who don't know, we have 3 questions, 1 for each sector. Either you get 3 purple sectors or you lose. And we'll take us right into our winners and losers of the week. 3 right gets us a winner. 1 wrong, only 1 wrong gets us a loser. Strapping on my helmet, jumping in the cockpit. It's Quizmaster's Cockpit. What do you got for me, Cheese?
I think you will win this week.
Okay.
I'm fairly confident.
There's
not a lot to go on. There's not a lot to go on since this, the race hasn't been around that long. So there's not much to go on here. So here we go. First question. When was the first Saudi Arabian Grand Prix?
Since this is the 5th year, it's got to be 2021.
That is correct.
Bing.
As I told you, these are cupcakes. Question number 2. What circuit on the F1 calendar is longer than the Jeddah Street Circuit?
I believe there's 2. Well, Spa, obviously.
There's actually only 1. It's Spa. That is correct.
Is Vegas longer?
It is. No, Jeddah's like 57 feet longer.
Really? Okay. Or it's close.
Something ridiculous. It's something ridiculous.
I thought Vegas was number.
It's close.
Number
it's
2.
Close,
but I guess Vegas is 3.
Close. Vegas is 3. That is correct.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Spa is correct.
Wait.
So you're 2 for 2, sir. Question number 3. Name the 4 winners of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, including today.
Well, of course you have Oscar Piastri, and of course you have Max Verstappen, number 1 and number 2. Lewis Hamilton was the only, until going into today, was the only non-Red Bull driver to win, which means, I guess by deduction, Sergio Perez had to win it at some point.
That is correct.
All right, deductive reasoning takes home the crown. There we go. Bing, bing, bing. Wow, so 15 questions in 5 races. I'm 12 for 15 on the season. Now we're talking some decent numbers. Now we're talking some decent numbers, and we learned a lesson that Las Vegas is slightly shorter than the Jeddah.
That is correct. You learned something new. So take us into winners, because you are a winner, sir.
Once again, I got to shuffle through my papers here and get ready for winners. Okay, let's do it.
I'm going to give it to Charles Leclerc. First podium for Ferrari. Drove a really damn good race. Made those medium stretch that out, so he had the little bit extra with the hard tire there at the end to just run some people down and put the Ferrari on the podium. It's a really solid drive for Charles. And Williams, double points. 8-9. About time. We've been waiting for this all season. So it's about time they finally put it together. So we'll give it up to Williams. And those will be our winners.
Yeah, we've been waiting for some consistency from Williams, not for a couple of weeks, I think for a couple of seasons now. So finally getting a little consistency there. And as we said earlier in the year, F1 is better when a team like Williams is good. Listen, you got to give it to Isaac Hadjar. The kids are all right, man. Once again, getting a point, and that was a hard-fought point for him. That's for damn sure. Yeah. And speaking of the kids, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, a.k.a. finishing 6th, having a great weekend all around, quality 5th. Just look good all around, man. And the fact that as I mentioned earlier, overall in the standings, beating Lewis Hamilton at this point, 5 races in. And if you heard some interviews over the weekend with Toto Wolff, just saying the most complimentary things because he's doing great right now. But as I mentioned last week, you have the triple header. We talked about how guys react to triple headers, and I called it last week that Lando Norris would have a really tough time this week, and I think the double header affected him. The triple header affected him. I think Lando was affected by that. So conversely, someone like Kimi Antonelli, who is a rookie, and Isaac Hadjar, who are kids relatively to the rest of the field, getting to a triple header is tough just getting here, let alone scoring points in those triple headers. So good job by both those rookies bringing home some points this weekend and just having a good overall weekend. And, Isaac Hadjar not even getting to Q3 and finishing in the points. So damn good for him. And making Liam Lawson look like a fool. Really? Should be Isaac. Why don't we put Isaac Hadjar in Yuki's seat now? How many guys can we put in the RB2 seat this season? I believe going into the season, what did Max have? 6 different drivers all time with 5 different drivers all time with him as his partner?
Something.
5 or 6. He might have 5 this season alone. And if I'm at Red Bull right now, I'd be thinking maybe Isaac Hadjar was the guy that they should put in that RB2 seat. So we'll see. Honda's not going to like that, but. And those are my winners, which brings us to losers. Who you got?
Lance Stroll, just another bad performance. How about this one for you, too? To put a little icing on the cake. Lance Stroll, that is. He now has the most Q1 exits in Formula One history.
Wow, that's not a record you want. That's a great record, though. Listen, if you got to have a record that's not the one you want, but he is in the history books.
That's bad. That's just bad. But yeah, just.
And what's worse is that Aston Martin has never really been the worst car on track that entire stint. It's never been like the dead last, clearly worst car on track.
No.
You agree?
Yeah. He's just bad, man. Just bad. And then I'm gonna give Yuki. I mean, it's a racing incident and all, but you got to finish races. You can't be crashing out and just not gonna do it. Just not gonna do it. If you want to keep that seat, you can't have top of the mountain, get some points, and then blow it up the next week. Unacceptable. Can't do it. As you said, he might not. We'll see if he stays in that seat the whole season. Supposed to be my losers.
Man. Yeah, this was a tough week, but you mentioned Lance Stroll. I'm gonna go the other side of the garage, and Fernando Alonso is the only non-rookie to not have a point this season. There's only 4 drivers right now without a point. That's Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson, Jack Doohan, and Bortoletto, and Fernando Alonso should, at this point, have a point. Lance Stroll shouldn't be better than you at this point, okay? He's got a top 10 finish. God only knows you need to have a top 10 finish here. And, if it wasn't for that 10-second penalty, he would have finished behind Liam Lawson today. So not good at all.
There's retirement talk on, been bouncing around a little bit about Alonso too. So
it's about that time. And listen, no offense to him, but if you're going to be in the game, you're gonna get that loser. And of course, listen, anytime Haas doesn't score any points, now it's expected that we have Haas getting a point every race, and when you don't, you're now a loser. Only the third time in Ollie B's career he does not score a point, but you're still going to get scolded. A tough weekend for them. This is definitely not the track for them as far as the speed is concerned, so it was quite obvious. But, I mean, who am I going to give it to? Sauber? It was a lot of losing on the back end.
Bortoletto was a little almost bad there when he almost took out Alonso. That was pretty, like, you got to know where other people are around you.
Well, yeah, and the classic rookie error when you just don't spatial error, and that was also, and I chalk all that up to these rookies having that third race in what you count down how often you've been in the car over 3 weeks, and it's less than 3 weeks because you're talking about the first time you get in that P1 in Japan, all the way to the end of this race. How many days are in between, right? That's a lot of driving in a very short period of time. It's not 3 weeks. It's not 21 days. It's like 17 days. And that's a lot of time in a car over 17 days. And so it is tough. And Bortoletto made a mistake. And again, I'll throw him in the loser category too. That was a rough one for the rookies, and they're going to love having a week off before they get to the parking lot of Miami. Very exciting as we wind up there soon. But of course, sir, that brings us to only one thing. But since my audio is broken...
Well, it's slap time, boys and girls.
It's time for a slap on the other side of the desert.
And we're going to pass it on. I'm going to pass it to you, sir. Again.
Once again, the desert slaps go to me because I can probably pick up more sand, maybe. I don't know. Because as we spoke about earlier, Lando Norris needed to finish at least podium. He needed to win this race to get in front of Oscar Piastri before Oscar takes off here. And we saw exactly what Lando Norris didn't want to see happen. Not that he didn't win the race, which, as we spoke about many times, he really needed to do this week. Yeah. He didn't lose to his teammate Oscar Piastri. He didn't look worse the entire weekend, end to end, from P1 all the way through, looked worse than Oscar. He didn't even finish on the podium. Now he finds himself 10 points back from Oscar. If Max finishes ahead of him in Miami, Lando Norris is going to be third. And I don't see how Max Verstappen doesn't finish ahead of Lando Norris from what I've seen over the last few weeks here. So Lando's slipping, and he needed to wake himself up, grab that sand, and slap yourself in the face, Lando Norris. You need to wake your ass up now. Because the season, we're 20% into the season, and if you don't start beating Oscar Piastri, you're going to finish this season third, behind an inferior car of Max Verstappen and Red Bull. And that's the way I see the season going.
Oscar and Lando now have the same amount of wins. Did you know that? They both have 5. Oscar's
career wins. How about that?
Oscar's done it in 51 races. It took Lando 133 now to have the same. So there's something to think out on, a little stat for you. But Lando definitely has to step it up. Otherwise, he's going to be playing second fiddle to Lando, to Oscar here. for the driver's title. McLaren's probably not going to make the same mistake they did last year and not have a decision on that at a relatively shorter time than they had last year.
Relatively speaking. Relatively, sir. We are having an absolute issue today. More issues with our audio today. For some reason, I can't get our Arabian music up. Of course, on all days, sir.
On all days, to not be able to get it is if you're taking that fantasy ride to the fancy island of Greentopia, where the beer flows like wine and the wine flows like beer. And the cannabis on Cannabis Day. On Cannabis Day. That air smells fantastic on Cannabis Day on Greentopia Island, let me tell you.
It does smell fantastic.
There ain't no other place to be than on Greentopia.
Well, hopefully you're enjoying
420.
Whatever holiday it is you are celebrating, whether it's Easter, whether it's 420, or whether it's something that I've never heard of. I hope you are enjoying your day.
You can always celebrate both as well.
You can celebrate all the holidays
too.
On this very special day. And we go to the betting circle, and not good for me. I drop all 5 of my bets. Brilliantly had, of course, Liam Lawson finishing in the top 10. It was juicy at plus 135. I had the box trifecta this week because they didn't give us any straight trifecta. So the box trifecta of Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen, which, as I said earlier, 2 more laps, I would have had that plus 225, but lost that. Red Bull, 2 Red Bulls in the top 6. Yeah, we lost that on turn 1 there, and that didn't last very long. And Max having the fastest lap, plus 550. That was so sexy. How do you not go with that? But Lando Norris had the fastest lap, which you had Lando Norris with the fastest lap, plus 160, so you take that home. But you also had Piastri, Max, Russell, box, top 3. That didn't happen. Piastri, Max, Norris, as I did, plus 225. That didn't happen. And look at you with Ollie Bearman picking him for the top 10. That didn't happen. You bet 200. I bet 200. You come away with plus 125, so minus 75 overall for that win. So you lost 75 greenie bucks. I lost a full schmear of 200 greenie bucks on that one. Takes me all the way down to 4,150 greenie bucks to your 4,350 greenie bucks. Yeah, you have a better record overall, but you're only up by that 200 greenie bucks, so it is a slim margin. Both of us definitely trickling away, not winning enough, that's for damn sure. Got to hit something big here. Take a breather for a week from the gambling, and we'll come back in Miami, and hopefully we can...
You don't have to bet every window.
In this game, we're sure as shit betting every window, so... Damn straight, especially on a weekend like this. Nothing's working here. All right, so that, of course, brings us to the penultimate part of the program. And that is... In the news! In the news! What you got?
I just got a couple for you this week. J-Lo, full pink bodysuit at the race today. Thoughts?
That's all you got to know. I remember J-Lo back in the day on In Living Color as one of the Fly Girls. Yeah. How far she's come since that back in the day, huh? Yeah, I don't even know what that was all about. I think that was just a great PR opportunity, I guess. I guess it's a way to show Ferrari F1 because that was immediately in People magazine. like immediately. That's like a crossover promotion thing for Formula One. Listen, Formula One is blowing up in the United States. You're going into Miami, which is obviously J-Lo's turf. She had a financial investment. I forget if she still does in the Miami Dolphins football team. So I think she has financial investments in all kinds of sports and sports in the Miami area. So obviously that's a prelude to the next race here, and had a lot of celebrities here in Saudi Arabia. But yeah, that was total PR thing. The pink bodysuit. She doesn't look bad. Gosh darn. For that age, I don't even know how old she is. She's ageless. That's how old she is.
Yeah.
And Lewis Hamilton did not enjoy that. That's what I gotta say. He's definitely loving life. He's like, I love being Lewis Hamilton right now. That's what he was saying.
Oh, man.
Because at first, I didn't recognize J-Lo at first. I had no idea who she was.
All right. Moving on to our last story. Will Max Verstappen be at Red Bull? Apparently Aston Martin's ready to give him 3 years, 234 million schnols. You taking that?
I think I'd be more interested if I was Max Verstappen with the Newey reunion, more so than the cash. I think Max Verstappen would get paid. Max Verstappen can make a living the rest of his life if he walked away from F1 tomorrow and just did endorsements. So as far as Max's money is concerned, I think that's the least of his concerns. Now, that's not always the case for every driver or every person in sports. Sometimes they take the money, and sometimes it ends up being the wrong thing. And sometimes in the end, having an extra $50 million in the bank, again, for plebeians like us, that is just a massive, insane amount of money. But for people who have hundreds of millions of dollars, it's, think about it over the course of your next 5 years of working. If you were making an extra, $12,000 over 5 years, that would probably be the comparison. Yeah, it's 12 grand more, and it could make a difference in your life. But do you want to go in a spot where you're going to be less happy, or you can make more money and go to a place where you're going to be working with people you trust and So it's all the balance. But I think this Aston Martin thing is the first thing that I've thought Max could take this and he can move on from Red Bull. Mostly because of the Newey thing. And maybe it was all set up that way.
He could also go to Merck. I mean, Toto Wolff's been hunting that dog for a while. Let's be dead honest. So he could be out if the Red Bull continues to, the car in general compares to seem to be, second, third best. Max ain't gonna stay. Max wants to win world titles.
He can have a good decade of good driving ahead of him.
Yeah, 100%.
It feels like Max has been around forever, but remember, he was 16 his rookie season. So while it feels like Max has been around for a long time, I think this was his 41st pole, I believe, 42nd pole of his career, something like that this weekend, which means that he's not even halfway to Lewis Hamilton. So, feels like Max has been around forever, but he hasn't. He's super young still, with 25. So, sign him up now, you can have him for a long time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, what else you got?
And that's all we got. That's what we got for in the news.
That's all we got. Well, we will be back in a week's time with a little in the news update as well. I'm sure there'll be something popping up. Maybe there'll be Max Verstappen, whether it be some other post-race nonsense as we're coming to you guys right after the race is concluded here in Saudi Arabia. But in 2 weeks' time, where are we going next?
South Beach, baby. We're racing around that parking lot that we call a circuit. We're going to Miami. Makes me laugh. We call it the Autodromo, but it's a parking lot. It's all...
The auto parking lot. It's not even in Miami, by the way. That's like
No. Well,
barely
no.
Miami. Like, at least
Yeah.
Vegas is in Vegas. You got, Austin. You got the Circuit of the Americas. You got COTA. So it's a circuit. It's not, you're not racing the streets of Austin, Texas, nor that they bill it as such. But the Miami race is billed incorrectly. It's a little bit like Miami's FTX Arena once was. Kind of a joke. But listen, whatever way the U.S., they were supposed to have a race right here over by my house over here, going past on the Jersey side of New York City, 10 minutes away from me, which never happened because nobody knew what F1 was. They started handing out flyers, by the way. We never talked about that, but they started handing out flyers and sending messages to people in those neighborhoods there in West New York, which is in New Jersey, just north of Hoboken. And they were going to have a race, man. And I know those streets very, very well, and they were going to have a race right there, as called the New York City GP, which wouldn't be in New York City, but at least overlooked the New York City skyline, right? You would see the skyline. You would see the Upper West Side. You're nowhere near Miami. Like, there's no Miami, you're not near it. You're in a parking lot. And the fact that they try to pull it off as if, welcome to beautiful Miami is such bullshit. But that's another story for another time. I'm sure we'll talk about that next week. Hit up that YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe now. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers this season by the end of 2025, because that would be super exciting. Thank you all for joining us, and say what you got to say, brother.
See you guys next week. In 2 weeks from South Beach. And as always, stay medicated, my friends.
Extra medicated today. Peace.